Hello there, very good morning and many thanks for staying with us right here on NTV Uganda. Like I did mention earlier on today morning, well, NMG does not rest. Even though International Women's Day was on the 8th, that was Tuesday this week. Yes, we continue to highlight some of the challenges affecting women right here in Uganda and also globally. So what are the other partners that have been working around the clock to ensure that these people, especially the women, are actually, helped in the quagmires that they deal with on a daily basis? We do have Trans-Cultural Psychosocial Organization, that is the TPO, and they've been doing some great work. So we want to get a situation analysis, more like an update, what has been achieved when it comes to breaking the barriers and breaking the bias when it comes to gender inequality and also issues affecting women. So we want to talk about the contribution of Trans-Cultural Psychosocial Organization and so forth. So we do have Akurut Josephine, she's over here, and she is the project coordinator, Building Resilience Project in Southern Karamoja, with their offices based in Amudat. We also do have Muwairwa. Mr. Muwairwa Michael is the Director of Knowledge Development and Innovation at this organization that we are talking about, the Trans-Cultural Psychosocial Organization. And on the far left, we do have Rachel Chisache Tukahirwa. Rachel is the Mental Health and Psychosocial Supervisor in that regard. Thank you so much for joining us right here on NTV Uganda.
Thank you very much.
All right, and let's start with you, Mr. Michael, on the subject at hand. We are talking about Uganda's progress towards breaking the barriers or the bias against women. Bring us up to speed with this theme. Why did you choose it?
Thank you, Romeo, and thanks viewers that are all watching us from every part of the country. I want to start by congratulating all the women and the country, as well as the entire world, on celebrating the International Women's Day, but as well as congratulating every actor that has put effort in contributing to empowering women and ensuring that they break the biases. Now, when you talk about Uganda's progress in breaking the biases around women, I want to say that the country has made tremendous progress.
Oh, we've made tremendous progress.
Absolutely.
So if we've made progress, let's first break it down for the viewer. What do we mean when we say breaking the biases? What kind of biases are we talking about?
Breaking the bias, we mean eliminating all forms of discrimination against women that can affect them or deter them from engaging in productive activities, but as well as that can hold them back from taking the front seat. On Women's Day, we were talking about taking the women away from the sitting room and bringing them to the boardroom.
Indeed.
So we are talking about eliminating all the discrimination.
Unpaid work, a woman is supposed to be in the kitchen and so forth, all that, to do away with it and empower the woman to believe she could be a CEO.
Absolutely.
And there are very few CEOs who are females.
Absolutely. And the government has made very good effort. I think in terms of policy, the government has been able to put in place policies that influence or support women to be able to come up front, but also being able to enable them to take an active role. For example, we have the gender policy of 2007, where it is encouraging women that and all the citizens of Uganda to be able to support women and eliminate any form of discrimination that affects them. And we have also, as a country, signed up to different conventions and international laws that are able to support and influence our efforts to bring up women. So as a country, we've made progress, especially in terms of policy. I think the question and the issue is then how do we implement?
Are we implementing the policies to begin?
Yes, to enable the women to be able to actively participate, and that's where the discussion should focus.
Indeed, we are breaking the barriers, right? And and the biases, indeed. You did mention one bias, and that is that we need to ensure that women are not only confined within their homes, grappling with unpaid work, but they should be somewhere actually, being fruitful with their ventures. But then, what are some of the other biases that we are talking about? Land discrimination and so forth?
Yes, I think when you talk about the whole core program areas, when you talk about access to productive assets, we have biases around women's access. Josephine here will be telling you the experiences from Amadat.
Yes, indeed.
Where women are being challenged and deprived of owning certain productive assets. And if women are not accessing those productive assets because men think they are superior, they are the ones in charge, then it becomes
not because of a policy, but because of their mindset that, you know what?
Absolutely.
Men deserve better than the women.
Absolutely.
So such biases.
Yes, such biases. We also have, and also the other thing which I need to talk about in terms of biases and breaking biases, and this is my personal belief, I think while we have put in place structural efforts, in terms of policy, in terms of programs that influence that, we need also to put a lot of interest in family, at family level, because some of these biases are coming in from the homes and family, how we bring up the boys and girls within the same families, the comments we give to the different sexes. So we need to empower parents and caregivers to ensure that even as they care for the children, they are not creating any form of bias that discriminates one against the other.
All right. I'm going to engage Josephine and also Rachel, but then I need to know more about the Transcultural Psychosocial Organization. Yes. Break it down for us. What do you do, and how does your work impact the women and the young girls?
Thank you very much, Romeo. TPO Uganda, which is Transcultural Psychosocial Organization, is a local non-government organization, and we've been in existence since 1994, and largely our work has focused on empowering women and vulnerable communities to enjoy and engage in productive activities, and largely focusing on improving their socio-economic well-being. So when we have issues around women, it is of strategic interest for the organization, because we are talking about empowering women, we are talking about empowering vulnerable groups and communities. We those that have seen our work in the different locations, we have presence in 46 districts, implementing different projects and interventions that aimed at empowering the vulnerable, marginalized communities. And when we talk about the vulnerable and marginalized, we're talking about issues of women, issues of children, and therefore, as we reflect on this topic today, we'll be sharing what we've been able to do.
Yes, Michael.
Within since we started working on the issues around the marginalized groups.
All right, the good news, Michael, is that we do have the project coordinator for the Building Resilience Project in Southern Karamoja. That is none other than Florence Akrut, and she's here with us to give us an account of the experiences that they actually did, encounter during this expedition. Talk to us. Very good morning once again, Josephine.
Good morning.
Yes.
And thank you very much. Thank you to the viewers, and we thank you for this opportunity that you've given us to really talk about how TPO Uganda is contributing to breaking the biases within the community. Because we realize that within our community, first of all, we need to look at the gender bias itself, and somebody might say, what is gender bias? What does it mean? Why the bias, and why is it existing within our different communities? So you find that the gender bias itself is, first of all, the treatment that is given to a person based on their sex, because of being a woman, and then maybe because of being a man. And for example, if I'm to give some of the biases that are within our context or within our communities that are really impacting or affecting the development in the different communities that we work in, you realize that, for example, in the Karamoja setting, where basically a woman is not supposed to own valued assets. Look at cattle, look at land, look at maybe goats. If a woman is to own some of these assets, then it has to be through her own sweat. It has to be through your earning, through involvement in different activities. Maybe you're in a village saving and loans association group, and it is where probably you're getting some money to sell, to buy a goat. But even after you have bought that goat, you don't have a right to sell that goat without the consent of your husband.
Even when you go, we've also heard that even when she goes to the agricultural firm, You understand? Goes through the whole process. Now, on the part of harvesting, that's where the man comes in.
That's where
and then he sells all the proceeds.
He sells all the produce, and when even it comes to generally tilling the land, this is left to the women, and they're the ones that are doing all the hard work.
So they're not
basically,
benefiting
in the Karamoja setting, you'll find that before the interventions of TPO Uganda, they realize that a man is only left to, their work is based on cattle, looking after cattle, and a woman is considered to be the breadwinner. And why a woman is looked at as a breadwinner in the Karamoja setting? Because of the bride price, the high bride price that is paid to this woman at the time of marriage. Because to them, the bride price is paid 40,000 above, 30,000 above. Wow. So you are considered as a community woman. It is not only that you have to perform roles and responsibilities to your household, but anybody within the community has a right to assign you the duty, as long as, because this cattle is not only contributed by your husband, but it is being contributed by the community members, the relatives.
You're actually telling us right here on NTV Uganda that neighbors can come through and seek the services of this young woman who is married to another man, as long as the
person is from the culture, from within the same clan. Even you, as long as you contributed an animal towards marrying me, you have a right to assign me the role and responsibility to perform certain duties in your home. So you find that a woman is overloaded. A woman is given a lot of roles. A woman is given a lot of responsibilities. So at the end of it all, by the close of the day, you realize that this woman is totally worn out.
So this is a problem that has existed and persisted even before the COVID-19 pandemic, because I'm talking about bride price. Bride price has been here for the longest time within this country. It's part of our culture. So are we saying societal norms, societal cultures, like giving bride price, are increasing GBV, gender-based violence, gender biases that we are talking about right now? To a large extent. Go ahead.
Because you realize that once a bride price is paid, take a look at 50 cows are being paid for this woman, 70 cows are being paid for this woman, and you get into that household, you are not only going to perform roles and responsibilities that are to your household, but you're looked at as a community woman, whereby you have to support every person in the clan, because each and every person within the clan or within the family has contributed an animal that has been used to pay your bride price. So at the end of it all, when it comes to farming, and maybe even when after harvesting, you've been engaged in production, agriculture, this food is not only to your household, it has to be shared across all the clan members or within the community members. So you find that a woman is really overloaded with work. So you find at the end of it all, they're not even given opportunities to perform in some of the activities within the community, to take up roles and responsibilities when it comes to terms of governance, when it comes to terms of maybe leadership within the community. A woman is considered to be an inferior person, is not respected. And when it comes to community activities, initially you would realize that women, you're supposed to sit down.
Yes.
The chairs are being left to men.
So the decision makers are the men.
The decision makers are
women
the men.
are left in the kitchen.
Women are left in the kitchen. They're left to do house chores. And yet, if these women are brought up, just like my colleague here said, Michael, that these women are left at the background, they need to be brought out on board, because I will want to believe that they have very, very interesting and developmental ideas that could bring development within the household. And that's where TPO Uganda will come in most of our interventions that we are doing within our different areas of operation. In the Karamoja setting, we are empowering these women. First of all, we have activities that we've been engaging, just like you talked about, the positive parenting and care, which involves both the men and the women. So when you find that when we involve both men and women, here you're teaching them that these roles of child upbringing, child development is not only left to one sex, but it is a combined effort of both man and the women. Because you realize most of these societal norms crop right from the time of upbringing, where you realize that boys are left to do certain roles and then girls are also left to do certain roles where they say boys, their work is to look after cattle.
And it seems like since it's being normalized by society, even the women are actually suffering in silence, because who am I going to run to report if even the chiefs are condoning the behavior?
That is it. So that is what TPO Uganda, as our role in the community, we're coming in to say that this can be broken down. Women can rise up and speak. Women can stand up and also be people who are developmental within the society. Women can stand up and defend for their rights. That's why you see that we have most of the economic empowerment activities that we are carrying out in our communities of operation. Like in Amdat, you find that production, tilling the land, removing the logs in the garden was basically to the woman. And then the man is back-seated.
But that is only part of the problem. We've been interrogating as NTV Uganda. This is what we've found out. Productivity of the woman on the field is waning. It's reducing tremendously because she has to do unpaid work first at home. Prepare breakfast, cook for the husband, for the children at home before they go to school, meaning she's going to leave home late to go to the agricultural firm. And she also has to leave early to come back and cook supper and prepare for the young learners who are coming back if they're in day. So if you will, so talk to us about how these gender biases are reducing the productivity of this woman who would have been producing more from her agricultural fields.
Yeah, so you,
and other businesses, by the way.
Yeah, so you realize that since the lot of work is left to the women and not engaging in production, but I find that as TPO, that is the bias that we are breaking.
Thank you.
We are like, no. This work can be done concurrently. A man and a woman can get involved in production. And once probably a man goes early to the garden, they both go to the garden. When a woman comes back, as a man, you need to support your woman. And how are we doing this? This is where we are having mostly the capacity building sessions within our communities, where we are trying to break the bias, and we're involving, because you know most of these biases crop from the traditional cultures. So you find that most of our activities we're engaging the traditional leaders, the clan leaders, because it is them that are still stuck to these cultural norms, where they say, a woman, this is your role and responsibility.
So mindset change will go a long way in helping us alleviate this.
The mindset change is helping in alleviating this and trying to reduce the bias that men have towards certain activities that are specifically supposed to be performed by women, and they are now beginning to appreciate that once a role is shared at household level, there is even a lot more that comes in as compared to leaving an individual to perform the role. You realize that even the land now that is put into production is increasing. Initially, you find that a plot of land, maybe a woman would be able to plow 1 acre of land or 2 acres of land, and that is where they're depending on for the rest of their. For example, in the Karamoja setting, you find that there is only one season, one major season, which is the first season in farming. So you realize that if this workload is left to one woman, to one person at household, because remember, she's not only doing production, she has other roles to perform outside there. You realize that what you'll get is less as compared to when you put your efforts together as husband and wife at household level. So this is where TPO is coming in, saying that we're encouraging both men and women to get into these activities, share the household roles, share responsibilities, and we are really proud to say that in all our areas of intervention or in all our districts of operation, 60% of the men are now coming up to support their women.
Are you sure? With their unpaid work within the household setting?
Yes, within the household.
He will come back from the...
He will come back and support the woman in maybe taking care of the children. Cook a little bit,
clean around.
Help her to go and fetch water, clean around, and
good.
This is reducing the GBV cases at household level, because you realize that initially another major cause of GBV cases at household level, when one side is looked at to provide.
Indeed.
But now this is where you find that a woman is also pulling some resources to support her husband, go and buy some sugar, and if at all you do not have money at hand, so I am able to provide, and the man is providing. So at the end of it all, you find that harmony is being created within the household, which is reducing the bias, which is reducing the GBV cases at household level, and this is really transforming and bringing development not only at household level, but across the society and across all our areas of operation.
That is Akuru Josephine, the project coordinator, Building Resilience Project in Southern Karamoja. They do have their offices based in Amudat. Of course, we're talking about the transcultural psychology psychosocial organization and some of the good work they've been expediting to see to it that we reduce or do away, eliminate, if you will, gender biases within this country. I do have Rachel Chisache Tukahirwa. She is the Mental Health and Psychosocial Support Supervisor, still with TPO. All right, let's look about the use of mental health and psychosocial support interventions to break the biases. What has been your experience, Rachel?
Thank you so much, Romeo.
Indeed.
One of the things I want to really note is on gender biases is that it does not only affect women.
Thank you.
It also affects men. However, research and history of gender-based, discriminatory policies, they highlight that that women have been highly affected, and that is why we make sure that as TPO Uganda, we are standing in the gap to support the women and girl children. And also another thing I want to note is that gender biases, they can take both positive and negative forms.
I need to listen to the positives, because we've largely been listening to the negatives from gender biases. I'm like, what kind of positives could be accrued from actually this conversation on gender biases? What are the pros, yes, if you will? So
the positives could be, an example could be that women are best suited. Actually, they are good cooks. They are good nurturers of children. Mm-hmm. You see, that is positive in its way, though, that we're mentioning it.
Yeah.
But it confines women in the...
You suffocate them with it. The fact that they're good with it doesn't mean they should die there in the kitchen.
Yes, exactly. So they remain in the domestic realms. That means a woman may, it just knows that a woman may never actually come out of the, or in the social, in the social community, and that is going to limit the way that they are going to present themselves in the outside world. In terms of professionalism, it's also going to limit their capacity,
right, because
of that positive bias. And that is just because of bias is positive, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have any adverse effects. It does have both positive and negative biases have adverse effects on the way that women are going to be treated in the society or communities, and these women continue to suffer in silence because culture has dictated on how we are supposed to act. Women are supposed to dress. Women are supposed to talk. Women
what decisions to make.
Even the decisions to make. I will talk about how mental health and psychosocial support interventions have really helped to break those gender biases, because this is to do with the gender roles, the roles that the society assigns us as women. I'm saying us, but I'm representing women, and also assigns males, females and males.
This is really a pertinent conversation, Rachel Tukahirwa. I will tell you that because in the last 2 years we've noticed something that's really important: the significance of psychosocial support. And this is a tenet that is actually being magnified by the Transcultural Psychosocial Organization, and we largely laud you for that. And of course, we are going to take a break. And after that, you're going to be magnifying how the use of mental health and psychosocial support systems and interventions go a long way in alleviating these barriers that we are talking about and the biases, indeed. So Rachel is still here with us, Michael is still here with us, and also Josephine. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Keep it here on NTV Uganda. Welcome back, and many thanks for staying with us right here on the #1 TV station, well, in the world, if you will, NTV Uganda. My name is Romeo Busiku. We're still talking about how best we can eliminate gender biases and also barriers, and the good work that the Transcultural Psychosocial Organization has been embarking on to ensure that this subject is actually achieved in its entirety as far as those goals are concerned. Now, Agnes Nantaba, the Communications and Documentation Manager at TPO, has replaced Akurut Josephine, the project manager from Southern Karamoja. She was the project coordinator building resilience project in Southern Karamoja. So she's being replaced in that regard. But then when we broke off, we were actually engaging Rachel Chisache Tukahirwa, the mental health and psychosocial supervisor at the TPO. Yes, Rachel, you were engaging us on the use of mental health and psychosocial support interventions to do away with gender biases. What are those experiences?
Thank you so much, Romeo. As we broke off, we're talking about mental health interventions, and I will just break down mental health and psychosocial support for our viewers. When we talk about what is mental health? It is just a state of well-being, and it's a word that normally the health actors use to note that these are ways that we can prevent or treat mental disorders. And then when you talk about psychosocial, it's a word that usually we use, or non-health actors will use, to mean that we are promoting, we are maintaining, we are making sure that that the individual and social well-being of people is actually seen. So psychosocial is just an interaction of words. How does our mental state, the way that we think, the way that we feel in our hearts, the way that we behave, affect our interactions? When we talk about well-being, psychosocial well-being, we are just meaning that what is this positive state that an individual, families, and communities can use to thrive?
Yes, Rachel.
So, in a way to be able to respond to the needs of vulnerable communities in the humanitarian setting, it's called the IASC. So it is the Interagency Standing Committee, and it's just a forum of UN and non-UN humanitarian partners that came together to make sure that they respond to the need of people, refugees who are coming into Uganda. How do we offer them assistance while they are living in Uganda? And those are the refugee settlements. So it came up with an intervention, and it uses a pyramid. A pyramid is a triangle to be able to respond to the needs of the people. And that is what also guides our interventions as MHPSS partners in Uganda, as TPO Uganda. We use that pyramid. It's a triangle. When you look at a triangle, I'm just going to I just visualize it. So at the base, we see that it is very, very big, meaning that people who are coming into Uganda to seek refuge, all they need is basically the basic needs. Feeling safe. They're coming from war-affected areas. They've lost loved ones. They witnessed people getting slaughtered, their loved ones getting slaughtered. All those traumatic events, they're coming in. What they need is security. What they need is safety. How can shelter? Because I don't have where to stay. So it is very key that at the base, we put social considerations in the basic needs, in the basic services that we are providing to these people, in a way that is very participatory, that is very safe, but also it is, we are making sure that as we involve the communities, we are promoting their well-being. At that base, and I'm going to explain at those levels. There are 4 levels. Sorry, I didn't mention that. There are 4 levels. So the first one at the base is just the basic needs and security. That is what we are addressing. At that level, we are building capacity of the partners that are providing services there. Protection partners, they could be education actors, they could be livelihood actors like Josephine mentioned, because they are providing basic needs. And what we are doing is to make sure that we build their capacities in incorporating or integrating or considering psychosocial support in the way that they deliver the services to the communities, in a way that is very dignifying, in a way that does not, again, bring about discrimination and stigma, because that's what we are trying to break. Now, those are some of the activities, and there is a lot of advocacy that we do at that level in terms of, like we are here at the International Women's Day, to make sure that we are talking about the issues that women experience and girls experience, because these are the most vulnerable. That is the first level. We go to the We go to the second level, and the second level
There is your image of the pyramid, the 4 layers you were talking about.
Thank
there
you so
have it.
much.
Indeed.
Thank you so much. And now at the second level, there we're talking about family and community. How do we promote social cohesion?
On the second level.
On the second level.
All right.
How do you promote social cohesion? How do you make sure that people are reunited? The families that actually, you know, as children are coming, as war happens in the different countries, we mentioned Congo and South Sudan, people lose their loved ones. People.
So when they come into our settings, Uganda, they are mentally distressed, and this is where TPO comes through.
Yes.
So these are the people within the refugee settlements. What about the host communities? How have they been mentally distressed during the last 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic? We'd like to know that as well.
When we talk about the host communities, when we talk about this pyramid, it is responding to the needs of the most vulnerable communities.
Right.
That is in the humanitarian setting.
Indeed.
That is why this pyramid was designed, to make sure that we offer humanitarian assistance to the refugees.
Right.
We will talk about the arm of the host community. Let me just explain that pyramid, so that, because our intervention, that's where they come in to be able to respond to the women, the needs of the women. Now at social, at the second level, that is the community. We build capacities of now the community structures. We believe that people have lost their loved ones. People don't know where they don't have a sense of belonging. Yes, we've addressed the issues of safety, but the sense of belonging. I don't have my father, my mother. These are unaccompanied children coming into the settlement. What we do is that we work with the community structures. Those are the refugee welfare councils, committee members, the child protection committee members, and what they do is to make sure that they bring together their communities. We build their capacities in identifying mental health problems, psychological distresses amongst these women. Some are violated, so women have been violated during war. So what we do is that once they're identified, they provide some basic MHPSS services. And MHPSS services is just mental health and psychosocial support. And at that level, we believe that the pyramid is going to narrow up,
yes, at the peak.
Yes, there are people, even after feeling that I have a sense of belonging, I have my family, but I cannot forget that I was raped, that my child was raped, that my child is bearing another child, and we have to take care of them. We don't even know who the father is. We call them SGBV survivors. And these are people who are distressed, that they are actually moderately or severely distressed, and at this particular time they have not recovered from just the level 2 support that you have given. They need to be taken through screening or assessments to make sure that we are treating what is causing their distress.
Are you targeting them in the refugee settlements only, or even in the urban areas where many might have migrated from the refugee settlements?
We are targeting our clients come from the refugee settlements, but also we target if we have 100% of our target, so we will work with 70% of refugee community and 30% of the host community. One of
the refugees within the host community,
yes,
who have left the refugee settlements. Are you also reaching out to them?
Yes, we are. And one of the things I'm going to mention here is that when you look at the host community, because like Josephine said, these biases cut across because of how they've been deeply rooted in our cultures. So you will find that even what the host communities suffer, also the refugee communities suffer. It's only that the refugees have experienced adverse, traumatic events. You will find that in the host communities, there are more of common mental health disorders like depression, anxiety, because of the limited resources. The limited resources and the violence that is existing in their homes, and the lack of opportunities to work. So the poverty cycle that is existing there is going to cause the distress, and we also address that. It's still using that same pyramid. When we go back to the refugee settlements, the refugee settlements, we will reach at level 3, and we are looking at these people have not improved even after finding for them families where they can, they can be able to settle in and feel safe.
So largely you're talking about incoming refugees and the kind of help that they need to resettle within this refugee settlement. But then we do have some young girls who are already within this refugee settlement. They were raped, defiled, some of whom, and they got pregnant in the last 2 years. We'd like to talk about the mental distress these young girls were subjected to and what you've been doing as TPO to help them alleviate the same.
Thank you so much. At that level, we assess the mental health, the psychological distress. For example, you would find that because of someone getting raped, a lady, a girl, a child getting raped, they cannot sleep. They hear voices, they hear the cries that took place. They use the 5 senses to perceive the environment. They smell blood. If they see a color like this red, they will think they've been taken back to war, because their mind didn't get time to actually process those situations and how they took place back in the country. So they were just running to look for safety at that particular point. But when they come to Uganda, settling in is hard because they've carried reminders with them. So that is when we come in to actually screen those psychological distresses. Let me call them distresses because they're in the mind and they're distressing them. They are affecting the way that they're actually delivering their activities, daily lives, how they are living. When we screen them, we group them, and we group them we group them and then deliver a therapy called cognitive behavior therapy. It is as simple as us trying to make sure that we are addressing how the thinking patterns, because the thinking patterns are going to affect how they are feeling and how they are going
All
to
right, that is Rachel Chisaje. She comes with a wealth of information. Of course, she is the mental health and psychosocial support supervisor at TPO. TPO is the Transcultural Psychosocial Organization. Basically, it's a rights-based organization that works with the central government, it works with the private sector, it also works with other partners to ensure that they bring about measures that will go a long way in improving the mental health and also the socio-economic well-being of those communities that they are trying to help, but in a sustainable way. So let's talk about that with Agnes Nantaba. She is the Director of Communications and also Documentation at the Transcultural Psychosocial Organization. Let's talk about some of the challenges you encountered along the way as you encountered some of these projects and how you navigated all that. Success stories can be thrown in there, and so that we get a broad overview of the TPO work here in Uganda.
Thank you very much, Romeo.
Yes, Agnes.
I'm very glad to be here and to share some of our experiences from the field.
Pleasure is ours.
It is important to bring to speed our viewers the fact that we have cross-cutting interventions as TPO Uganda. We have those that tackle child protection, and just to let our viewers know that we have projects, for instance, in southwestern Uganda that looks at children, orphans, and other vulnerable children. But we also look at food security, we also look at gender-based violence, and when we look at all those components, we try to integrate interventions using mental health and psychosocial support. Now, in all those, you look at the fact that women are at the center of all those interventions, from the household level, when you go through to from families as the smallest unit of leadership, and then when you go to as high as government, you see that women are very much involved in those interventions. We've had experiences at the field level where you find some, for instance, some of our women beneficiaries have been distressed. Some have been even displaced from their homes, but through our interventions we're able to place them in order, working on their mental stature, and to be able to get them to think right, even with hope, just to make sure that as long as their mental stature is in order, they're able to get back, be supported through our economic empowerment platforms and interventions, get them to some projects, for instance, and interventions which get them to get their hands to do do something that can benefit them economically. So our experience from the field has been that once we're able to make a woman rise, we're able to even make the entire community rise. Once we're able to get this woman in their right mental stature, think right, and even with hope, they even to get other women involved. We've seen them form, for instance, sale groups where they're able to come together on a weekly basis to start saving. Those who have not been even earning anything, from the small backyard gardens that we have been able to engage them in, you see a woman, those who are even in rental spaces, they're able to start growing vegetables to improve their family nutrition, but also to get an extra income because they're able to earn. And from that, they're able to also get that income, save, and grow. Some have been able to establish even bigger businesses. We've even got those young girls, for instance, who have been dropped out of school. You very well know that we're still battling with the after effects of COVID-19, which left many girls out of school, but our interventions have also worked to ensure that there is continuity. Much as we have these girls drop out of school, how are we able to help them be of benefit to themselves, but also to their communities? So we've engaged them in some sort of cottage training, we've linked them to some youth training, and most of these girls, when you speak to them as of today, they are thinking positively, they are thinking bigger, and they are looking at opportunities to even help their families to thrive. And that is the thrust of our interventions, that if we are able to empower a woman at the grassroots level, we're able to get them to think bigger, to even get those men involved. Like Rachel has mentioned and Josephine, we've actually seen some men now involved. Previously, we used to see men held back and withdrawn from these interventions. As you know, it's largely women who are involved in getting together, improving their welfare and well-being. And I experienced from, for instance, some projects in northern Uganda. We have the Trust Fund for Victims project that works on rehabilitation of some of those beneficiaries. But over time, we've seen some of these men withdrawn, but through the cognitive behavior therapy sessions, yes, we're able to improve their mental stature. And when these women get back home, they're able to even have an engaging discussion with their husbands and families, and we've seen such households even improve at that level. We've seen those men come up and they're like, see, you've helped my wife to improve here and there. I also want to be supported.
That is very good, Agnes.
Yeah,
Nat. But then there's a group of people we are forgetting. It's 11:50 a.m. and we are running out of time, but there's a group we've forgotten. The women in northern Uganda. I mean, we're talking about how distressing the COVID-19 pandemic was in the last 2 years, but these people suffered in the last 20 or so years of the LRA war. Many are grappling with statelessness. No, like you're not considered a citizen and so forth. So what about the children you give birth to? Children, some of whom might not have ID, so that means they can't engage in government programs. Talk to me about that mental distress on the children and the parents alike, single or double.
So for us, our interventions, for instance, like I mentioned, we have the USAID's Peaceful Coexistence and Resilience Project in northern Uganda. Now that works to support communities to live in harmony. Like you said, these communities have been through 20 years or so of war, and their mental well-being is really displaced. Some of them cannot even trace their homes. So what we do, and eventually some of these are unable to live in harmony with their communities. So that is where we start from. How do we screen them? How do we engage them, like Rachel has mentioned? And once we are able to do that, we work through community support structures. Who are the really mobilizers or chief leaders in the communities, all those that can support to mobilize these people, bring them together and work with them. So we realize that, for instance, we've supported to improve or build about 350 community support structures in northern Uganda, and even when our projects have probably come to an end, we're able to ensure continuity of our interventions, because these community support structures stay behind. There are individuals or leaders who are used to these people. They still engage with them where there is commotion, where there is chaos, for instance, a struggle for land or any other resources, they still come in. We leave behind handbooks and guiding manuals, which these community support support structures can use. So we are on top of the game.
And you've reduced anxiety within the region.
Exactly. When you go to the field and engage with these community leaders, engage with even the women, you realize that even the way they were welcoming you, previously they were held back. They would see someone and then they're not willing to even open up about their challenges. But right now when you engage with them, they're able to open up because we've placed them somewhere in as far as their mental well-being is concerned. And that is the thrust of the TPO Uganda intervention.
Thank you so much, Agnes Nantaba, for actually being so spot on in your submission. Already we do have Muwairwa Michael. He is the director in charge of knowledge development and also innovation at TPO. Let's talk about, on a scale of 1 to 10, would you say that the refugees within the refugee settlements are suffering more mental health distress than the women within the host communities?
I think
give us variations
on a scale of 1 to 10, I think...
based on evidence and research.
I'll give it 8. Yeah, women in the refugees settlement suffer more distress than those in the...
What are the factors leading to that, and what are you doing?
Yeah, but that does not mean that those in the host community are not suffering stress, because there are different stressors. But largely within the refugee settlements, because of the challenges around access to resources within the settlement, there are issues of experiences that they have gone through. But you're in a foreign country, there are different laws, there are different expectations. All these things affect you, and you've also, there are issues around uncertainty. Will they go back where, all the issues that made me to leave where I came from, will they go away and be able to go back there? So the uncertainty around it also causes a lot of stress. But the fact that these host communities are fighting for the same resources with the refugees, it somehow also stresses them, in addition to our own social cultural norms, the perceptions that we were talking about, and some of the unfairness and discriminations that happens also stress the host communities. So I would say, yes, while the refugee women suffer more of the distress, the host community equally suffer some distress, although at different levels and from different angles.
Thank you so much, Michael. Rachel, what kind of support do you need to see being advanced to you from the central government, from organizations like NMG, from private communities and entities? What kind of support do you need to see advanced to the TPO and many of the people working within that space to ensure that you help the communities you're working for?
Yes, thank you so much. I would love to, first of all, it will begin with us.
Indeed.
Continuous psychoeducational awareness sessions on mental health. There is a lot of stigma on mental health disorders.
Thank you.
People suffering with mental health disorders, but also our policies that govern our country. For example, the Mental Health Act was signed, but you're going to find that when you look at things to do with suicide, it is still a crime for someone to end their life.
Indeed.
And it's not killing, but end their life.
Jambogo student did that here last week.
Exactly.
Yeah, distressing.
Because they are distressed. They are suffering with things to do with anger, with self-esteem. So we need the government to come up and support us in making sure that there are policies and laws that are supporting us to maintain a good mental well-being. Also, we need associations and bodies. As clinical psychologists, as PCOs, those are psychiatric officers, we have weak bodies that are supporting us in promoting this profession. So we need to cooperate with the government so that we can see this come through. Already we have set up a scheme of service, and we've been working with the Ministry of Health to make sure that this is approved, and this will better govern at least the way that we deliver services in the most professional way to the communities.
Rachel, break down the red flags. You have a viewer who is watching and they want to know, how do I know that I'm grappling with challenges associated with mental health issues? What are the red flags?
Some of the things, and those are signs, some of the things that could show you that you're having a mental health problem or challenge, you're challenged with the mental health problem, is that you may lose interest in the things that used to be pleasurable. I'm a woman, I used to love to put some makeup or take care of my husband, my family, and then I'm losing it. I no longer want to do this work that was pleasurable before. There is persistent and constant sadness in someone's mood. And you'll find that also they feel overly overwhelmed when they're doing tasks. There is a lot of worthlessness in how someone may feel, and a lot of negative self-talk, or a lot of negative
putting yourself down.
Yes, it's in the mind, and sometimes
I'm not worth anything because of what happened to me.
That is an idea in your mind, and sometimes you're going to there is also forgetfulness. Now there is no more forgetfulness, but what I'm talking about is that you're holding a pen and you're looking for it. Exactly. Where's my pen? Exactly. When you're talking about the women, they'll put a knife in the armpit and they keep looking at where is the knife? You have a toothbrush in your mouth, but you're looking for it. And what happens is that I've seen it so many times. The impact of that is that your social environment, your relationships with people is going to go down, it's going to go low, because you're going to quarrel, you're going to fight. You took my knife, why did you take it? But you have it in your armpit. There is going to be a lot of, let me just give an example, a very small one. Imagine you had food, you're preparing food, your woman preparing food, but you have forgetfulness. You're going to put a lot of salt in your food. Your husband is going to come home, eat the food, and like, this woman who doesn't even finish her work, and now they put a lot of salt in my food. GBV, that's how it culminates. So those are some of the signs that I can put together. And indeed, the viewer has been following keenly, and they have been taking stock of all those red flags. Please, if you are grappling with the same, the Transcultural Psychosocial Organization is already here, and they are willing to help you. One call away or one visit away, and you'll be able to receive all the help that you are clamoring for. My name is Romeo Busik. Of course, we're talking about how best we can break the barriers and biases affecting our women right here in the country. Thank you so much, Rachel Chisache Tukahirwa. She is the Mental Health and Psychosocial Support Supervisor at TPO. We also did have in the middle here Mr. Muwairwa Michael. He is the Director of Knowledge Development and also Innovation at TPO. And we also did have Agnes Nantaba. She is the Director of Communications and Documentation. Communications and Documentations at TPO. And she was actually replacing, that is Akurut Josephine, the project coordinator of that project being expedited in southern Karamoja. All right, thank you all for having made the time to speak to us right here on NTV Uganda. We're looking forward to our next encounter. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And indeed, yes, this is it, and we have come to an end. In less than an hour, it's going to be NTV at 1. Have yourselves a blessed day. We'll be right back.